A massive stone wall fits together so perfectly that not even a blade of grass can grow in the seams. This video explores 25 ancient ruins where the architecture defies all logic, challenging everything we think we know about history. By the end, you will see the past not as a simple timeline, but as a complex global puzzle waiting to be solved. How could cultures separated by continents and achieve such similar, impossible precision? What forgotten knowledge allowed them to move stones heavier than modern cranes can lift? These sites suggest our ancestors possessed capabilities we are only beginning to grasp. What does it mean for a civilization to leave behind a mystery that outlasts its own memory? These feats become even more astonishing when you strip away our modern assumptions. Across the world, work with the same basic toolkit, one that seems almost laughably inadequate for the monuments they left behind. They had stone, copper, bronze, and wood. They had ropes made from plant fibers and the strength of human hands. What they did not have defines the mystery. No steel for cutting, no diesel engines for hauling, and in many cases, not even a simple wheel to ease the burden. Every single stone you will see in these places was first found in the earth, then separated from the bedrock, moved across miles of wilderness, and finally coaxed into a perfect, silent alignment. Think of the process not as a single event, but as a chain of impossibilities. How do you locate the perfect stone? How do you cut it free without modern tools? Once it is free, how do you move a block weighing more than 10 modern cars across rivers and up mountains? And at the journey's end, how do you lift it precisely into place, sometimes hundreds of feet in the air? The conventional answer points to immense communal effort, to levers and ramps and ropes, to generations of knowledge passed from master to apprentice. This is the story we tell ourselves, a story of human perseverance and cleverness. And for many incredible sites, it is a story that fits. Yet the ruins we are about to explore resist that comfortable explanation. They present details, precision, and scales of work that seem to strain against the limits of even the most dedicated ancient society. This is where the debate truly ignites. Some researchers suggest forgotten methods, perhaps a sophisticated understanding of sound, vibration, or even the properties of the stones themselves that we have yet to rediscover. Others propose a different kind of knowledge, not technological but organizational, a societal ability to coordinate thousands of people with a single purpose over lifetimes. As we move from this foundation of understood difficulty into the realm of the inexplicable, hold that question in mind. Are we looking at the peak of known ancient engineering, or are we glimpsing the fragmented outline of something else entirely? A different chapter in human capability waiting to be read. This distinction between the difficult and the inexplicable is crucial. Not every ancient monument makes our list. A pyramid, however grand, built with tools and methods we can reasonably reconstruct, does not qualify as a true architectural mystery. Our focus narrows to those specific sites where the stonework itself seems to whisper a secret, where the achievement stands in stark, silent defiance of the official story. The criteria for inclusion are strict and based on tangible, measurable puzzles. First, there is the matter of precision. We are not talking about stones that fit together roughly. We mean joints so flawless that you cannot slip a piece of paper between them, angles cut across multiple planes with a geometric perfection that would challenge modern machinery. This is the signature of polygonal masonry, where irregular blocks are carved to interlock like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, a technique that appears independently across the world. Second, we consider sheer scale. How heavy is the single largest stone? How far was it moved from its quarry? When the numbers reach a certain threshold, the standard explanations of log rollers and rope teams begin to sound like wishful thinking. Third, we look for astronomical or geodetic alignment. A structure that captures the sunlight on a specific solstice with pinpoint accuracy, or one that is oriented to true north with zero deviation. Suggests a depth of knowledge about the Earth and sky that archaeology often struggles to account for. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we seek the unique anomaly, the one-off technique or material that appears nowhere else in that culture's known repertoire. It is the fingerprint of a master who left no other clues. Each location you are about to see represents a peak on this spectrum of mystery. They are not merely old, they are actively perplexing, forming a global catalog of questions carved in stone. And to truly appreciate the depth of these questions, we must begin where the stones themselves began, in the quiet solitude of the quarry. High above the modern city of, a fortress of stone defies the very mountains it rests upon. This is, and its signature feature, is a series of 3 zigzagging walls built from limestone blocks of such immense size they seem to belong to the realm of giants. The largest of these stones is estimated to weigh around 200 tons, equivalent to the mass of a small blue whale lifted into the sky. But the staggering weight is only the beginning of the mystery. Look closer and you will see that these are not simple, rectangular bricks. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon, a piece of a colossal 3-dimensional puzzle. Their sides are carved with multiple angles and subtle curves, designed to fit precisely against the equally complex shapes of their neighbors. The result is a wall where the seams between stones are so tight, so flawless, that not even the thinnest knife blade can find purchase. No mortar was used, no cement. The structure relies entirely on this impossible fit, a testament to a stonemason's art pushed to its absolute limit. This precision was not merely for show. The Andes Mountains are a landscape shaped by tremendous geological force, a place where earthquakes are a regular and powerful occurrence. For centuries, these seismic events have shaken the region, toppling modern buildings constructed with steel and concrete. Yet the polygonal walls stand unyielding. When the ground trembles, these intricately interlocked stones are believed to shift and settle as a single, flexible unit, absorbing the energy without cracking. It is an architectural feature, so advanced it feels like a modern engineering solution, yet it was achieved over 500 years ago. The Inca builders possessed an intimate, almost intuitive understanding of their materials and their environment, crafting a structure that works in harmony with the very forces that would destroy a lesser wall. This harmony, however, deepens the central question: how was it done? The historical record and archaeological consensus tell us the Inca did not use the wheel for transportation. They had no draft animals larger than the llama, which cannot carry heavy loads. Their hardest metal tools were made of bronze, a material too soft to efficiently cut the dense limestone. So we are left with a series of practical puzzles. First, how were these 200-ton behemoths separated from the bedrock in quarries located miles away across rugged terrain? The standard explanation involves hammering wooden wedges into natural fissures and soaking them with water to expand and fracture the stone, a process requiring immense patience and labor. But controlling such a fracture to produce a specific, angled polygonal shape seems an order of magnitude more difficult. Then comes the journey. Moving a stone heavier than a space shuttle fuel tank without wheels or powerful animals is a logistical nightmare. The prevailing theory suggests the use of thousands of laborers, ropes made from plant fibers, and a system of log rollers. They would have had to inch each block down valleys, across rivers, and up the steep slopes to the site, a journey that could take months for a single stone. The sheer coordination, the sustenance required for such a workforce, and the management of this effort over generations stretches our imagination of ancient societal organization to its breaking point. Finally, there is the placement. Once at the site, how did they lift these ton polygons and lower them into position with millimeter precision? Levers and earthen ramps are the textbook answer, yet fitting an irregular stone into a custom-shaped socket on a ramp system, where you cannot see the final alignment, adds another layer of profound difficulty. The seamless joints suggest a final fitting process, perhaps involving the careful grinding of the mating surfaces with sand and water over countless hours. But this itself requires a vision, a plan so exact that the builders knew the final shape of every block before it was even. This points to a lost method, a sophisticated knowledge of geometry and stonework that was either never written down or was part of an oral tradition that faded with the empire's fall. The walls of Do not just showcase what the Inca built, they silently question everything we assume about how they could have possibly built it. If the stones of challenge our understanding of ancient engineering, then the platform at Baalbek shatters it completely. Here, in the Valley of Lebanon, lies a Roman temple complex of breathtaking scale. But the true mystery is not the elegant columns the Romans left behind. It is the foundation upon which they built. Deep within the supporting walls is a tier of 3 colossal limestone blocks known as the. Each one of these monoliths is a staggering 800 to 1,000 tons. To grasp that weight, picture 3 fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets, carved from solid stone, and then neatly stacked within a wall. The Romans are credited with constructing the magnificent temple of Jupiter that once stood above, yet they themselves wrote of finding this gargantuan platform already in place, a work of giants from a lost age. The stones are so precisely fitted that their seams are virtually invisible, a hallmark of a much older and far more mysterious building tradition. This fact alone reframes the entire site. The Romans, master builders in their own right, did not create this foundation, they inherited it. They saw these 1,000-ton blocks and chose to build their own tribute to the gods upon them, perhaps in awe of the power they represented. So who were the original architects? The historical record offers no names, no civilization that claims the work. It is a signature without an author, a feat of engineering attributed to a ghost culture, whose only legacy is the sheer, incomprehensible weight of their ambition. The mystery deepens just a short distance away, at the quarry. Here rests the stone of the pregnant woman, an even more massive block partially carved from the bedrock. Estimates place its weight at around 1,200 tons, making it one of the largest single pieces of stone ever worked by human hands in the ancient world. It was never moved, left forever attached to the earth as if the project was simply abandoned, or the challenge finally proved too great. The presence of this stone is a crucial piece of evidence. It tells us the quarry was active, that the builders intended to move even larger monoliths than the ones already in the wall. It also gives us the distance of the challenge. The quarry sits nearly 1 mile from the temple site. This is not a matter of dragging a stone across a flat plain. The route would have involved a significant descent from the quarry, and then a climb to the building platform, a logistical puzzle of nightmarish proportions. Let us consider what moving a 1,000-ton stone truly means, with the technology we believe was available. Even with the full might of the Roman Empire at its peak, with its advanced cranes, pulleys, and vast slave labor, there is no record of them moving stones of this magnitude. Modern heavy machinery, the kind used to build skyscrapers and bridges, would find this a serious, carefully planned operation requiring specialized transporters and reinforced roads. The idea that a pre-Roman culture accomplished this not once, but at least 3 times, using only ropes, logs, and human muscle, strains credibility to its absolute limit. How do you even begin to lift one corner of such a stone to slide a roller underneath? How many thousands of people could physically fit around it to pull, and how could they possibly coordinate their force without modern communication? The standard model of log rollers may fail here, as the immense pressure would simply crush the logs into the soft ground. Some researchers have proposed alternative theories, such as a system of counterweighted levers or a complex network of water channels to float the stones on barges. Though no direct evidence for such methods exists at Baalbek, the silence of history is deafening. We are left with the physical evidence alone, a platform of impossible stones that has supported empires. It stands as a permanent question mark in the landscape, a testament to a forgotten chapter of human endeavor, where the scale of achievement seems to disconnect entirely from the tools we believe were available. This disconnect, this gap between what we see and what we think we know, is the very heart of the mystery. Puma feels like walking onto the set of a science fiction film. In the high plains of Bolivia, not far from the shores of lake, lies a sprawling complex of shattered stone that defies every expectation of an ancient ruin. This is not a crumbling temple or a weathered palace. It looks like the aftermath of a cataclysmic explosion in a precision machine shop. The ground is littered with enormous andesite and sandstone blocks, many of them torn apart as if by a titanic, unknown force. But it is the condition of the stones themselves, not their scattered state, that presents the core mystery. Each block is a masterpiece of geometric perfection. You will see perfect right angles, surfaces that are flawlessly flat, and edges so sharp they seem to have been cut by a modern diamond saw. Some stones feature intricate channels and notches, carved with such consistent depth and symmetry that they look like components meant to interlock, a kind of ancient stone Lego system. Perhaps most baffling are the drill holes, bored perfectly cylindrical through this incredibly hard rock, with a uniformity that suggests the use of a high-speed, stable drill bit, not a laborious hand tool. The andesite used here is a volcanic rock renowned for its durability, a material so hard it would quickly dull even modern steel tools. Yet the builders of Puma treated it with an ease that borders on the nonchalant. They carved it, shaped it, and polished it to a smooth, almost glass-like finish. The conventional timeline attributes this site to the culture, a civilization that flourished around 1500 years ago. According to mainstream archaeology, their toolkit consisted of stone hammers, copper chisels, and abrasive sand. The explanation given is that with enough time, patience, and labor, you can achieve almost anything. But when you stand before these stones, that explanation begins to feel like a story told to comfort ourselves. The difference between a rough cut and a precision cut is not just a matter of effort, it is a fundamental gap in technology. Creating a perfectly flat surface across a large area of andesite with a stone hammer is not just difficult, it is physically implausible. The hammer would shatter the rock unevenly, not shear it cleanly. Those perfect right angles and razor-sharp edges imply the use of guiding systems, something to ensure the cut stays true along its entire length. The identical drill holes suggest a tool that rotated with immense stability and consistent pressure. This is not the work of artisans patiently pecking away at stone. It is the work of engineers who understood their material on a profound level and possessed the means to manipulate it with controlled, repeatable precision. The design philosophy itself is a clue. The blocks at Puma appear modular. The repeating patterns, the interlocking channels, the sense that these were mass-produced components for assembly points to a conceptual leap. It suggests standardized manufacturing, a blueprint that existed before the first stone was cut. This is an architectural mindset we associate with industrial eras, not with a pre-Columbian culture high in the Andes. So what are we truly looking at? One perspective holds that we are witnessing the peak of a lost technological tradition, a method of stone working so effective that its secrets died with its masters. Perhaps they used specialized tools, alloys, or techniques with materials like diorite that we have overlooked. Another, more speculative view wonders if the site is far older than we think, a remnant of a much earlier chapter of human history that was later found and perhaps partially used by the violent scattering of the blocks adds to this enigma, pointing to a sudden, devastating event that could have been geological or something else entirely. Puma does not give up its secrets easily. It presents us with a finished product of astonishing capability, but refuses to show us the factory, the tools, or the instruction manual. It is a puzzle where the pieces are exquisitely made, but the picture they are meant to form has been lost to time, leaving us only with the haunting quality of their craftsmanship. The silence of Puma's scattered workshop is matched only by the enduring, monolithic presence of the Great Pyramid. For centuries, it has been studied, measured, and marveled at, yet its most basic achievement remains a profound architectural mystery. This is not merely a tomb. It is a mountain of stone engineered with a precision that humbles the modern world. Its four sides are aligned to the cardinal directions, with an accuracy of just a fraction of a single degree, an orientation to true north more perfect than what many modern buildings achieve. The base, covering over 13 acres, is leveled to within less than an inch across its entire expanse, a feat of surveying that seems impossible on such a colossal scale. And at its heart lies the logistical puzzle, a structure composed of over 2,300,000 individual blocks of limestone and granite. Many of these stones weigh several tons each, with the massive granite beams inside the king's chamber reaching an estimated 80 tons. The conventional timeline tells us this was built over a 20-year period for a pharaoh named Khufu, around 4,500 years ago. To meet that schedule, workers would have had to quarry, shape, transport, and set into place one of these ton blocks every 2 to 3 minutes, continuously, day and night, for 2 decades. The numbers alone stretch our understanding of ancient project management to its absolute limit. How do you feed, house, and organize a workforce large enough to sustain that pace? How do you maintain such unerring precision across a project of that duration and magnitude? The standard explanation involves ramps, levers, copper tools, and the coordinated labor of tens of thousands. Yet, when we apply these tools to the specific challenges of the pyramid, the practical difficulties multiply. Take the granite for the internal chambers, which was from Aswan, over 500 miles up the Nile. Moving an 80-ton slab of that stone on a wooden barge, then offloading it and dragging it to the building site, is a Herculean task even with today's knowledge of physics. Then comes the placement. These gigantic granite beams were lifted to form the roof of the king's chamber, over 140 feet above the pyramid's base. The ramp theory struggles here, as building an earthen ramp sturdy enough to support such weight and long enough to reach that height would have required almost as much material as the pyramid itself. And its removal would be another monumental task. Inside, the precision continues. The king's chamber is built from exquisitely fitted red granite blocks. The surfaces are flawlessly flat, the corners perfect right angles, and the walls are precisely parallel. This is stonework of the highest order, achieved on one of the hardest rocks available. The builders were not just stacking stones, they were crafting a sealed, resonant space with the care of master jewelers. And here we encounter the Great Silence. For a culture that documented so much of its life and beliefs on temple walls, there is not a single hieroglyphic inscription, not one papyrus scroll, that details the pyramid's design or construction methods. What we have are administrative records mentioning the movement of stones and the provisioning of workers, but no blueprint, no engineering manual. This absence is as telling as the presence of the stones themselves. It suggests the knowledge was so specialized, so closely held by a guild of master builders, that it was considered too sacred or too powerful to be written down. Passed only through apprenticeship and lost when that chain was broken, the Great Pyramid stands as the ultimate symbol of a vanished expertise. It is a machine of stone aligned to the cosmos, a monument of staggering scale built with jeweler's precision, and a silent testament to a civilization that could conceive and execute a vision so grand that its methods continue to spark wonder and debate after the last block was set in place. Beneath the clear, blue waves off Japan's southernmost island lies a mystery that redefines the very notion of ancient ruins. The monument is not on land. It is submerged under nearly 100 feet of ocean, a sprawling sandstone complex that looks like a sunken city. From above, you see a massive rectangular platform, over 500 feet long and 130 feet wide, descending in a series of flat terraces like a grand staircase for giants. There are sharp, 90-degree corners, perfectly straight walls that run for dozens of feet, and distinct features that resemble carved pillars, archways, and even a triangular depression that looks like a ceremonial pool. The entire structure is monolithic, carved from the living bedrock of the sea floor, and this fact is the heart of a fierce and ongoing debate. Is this the work of human hands, or is it an astonishingly complex trick of nature? Geologists point to the powerful tidal currents in the area and the natural tendency of sandstone to fracture along straight plains. They argue that the terraces and steps could be the result of millions of years of erosion, a random but spectacular geological sculpture. Yet, for many who have dived on the site, the sheer accumulation of geometric features feels intentional. The right angles are too precise, the terraces too level and symmetrical, the pillars too regularly spaced. One prominent feature, nicknamed the turtle, looks unmistakably like a stylized animal carving. The central staircase is aligned with the cardinal directions, a detail often associated with purposeful human design. If even a fraction of these features were found on dry land, there would be little debate about their artificial origin. The ocean's embrace adds a profound layer of complexity. If the monument is human-made, its construction date presents a staggering challenge to history. The structure now sits at a depth that was dry land during the last Great Ice Age, when global sea levels were nearly 400 feet lower. For it to have been built on dry ground, the work would have had to be completed over 10,000 years ago, and then slowly submerged as the glaciers melted and the oceans rose. This timeline is revolutionary. It places the monument in an era conventional archaeology calls the pre-pottery period, a time when humanity is believed to have been comprised of small, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers. The idea that a society capable of such large-scale, precise stonework existed at that time, in that part of the world, would force a dramatic rewrite of our understanding of human cultural development. It suggests a lost chapter, a forgotten coastal civilization that thrived and then vanished beneath the rising seas, its story preserved only in these cryptic underwater forms. The monument sits in a silent limbo, neither fully claimed by science as a natural wonder nor fully embraced by history as an ancient ruin. It represents a different kind of mystery, one not of how it was built, but of who, if anyone, built it at all. It asks us to look at the map of ancient human achievement and consider the vast, now submerged coastlines as potential homes for cultures we have never known. The waves that now hide it may be guarding one of the oldest and most enigmatic sites on the planet, a ghostly outline of a world lost to time. The ocean's silent enigma gives way to a modern mystery, one built not in the distant past but within living memory. In the humid Florida landscape stands the Coral Castle, a sprawling complex of stone that seems to defy the very laws of physics. Its creator was a single man, Edward, a Latvian immigrant who stood just 5 feet tall and weighed barely 100 pounds. Between the years 1923 and 1951, working almost entirely alone and under the cover of night, he single-handedly carved and assembled over 1,000 tons of O-like coral rock. The scale of his accomplishment is not in its antiquity, but in its profound personal impossibility. He fashioned massive walls, intricate furniture, and celestial sculptures, including a perfectly balanced stone gate that weighed an estimated 9 tons, yet could be set in motion with the gentle push of a single finger. This was not a communal effort spanning generations. It was the life's work of one reclusive individual, and that fact elevates it from a curiosity to a genuine architectural riddle. Claimed to have discovered the secrets that built the ancient pyramids, a knowledge, he said, involved understanding the magnetic currents of the earth. He famously stated, "I have discovered the secrets of the pyramids and have found out how the Egyptians and the ancient builders in Peru and Asia with only primitive tools raised and set in place blocks of stone weighing many tons." He guarded his methods with intense secrecy, constructing tall fences and working only after sunset, ensuring no one ever witnessed how he manipulated stone that sometimes weighed as much as 30 tons. Equivalent to a full-grown humpback whale. When asked how he managed such feats, he would only give cryptic answers, saying he understood the laws of weight and leverage. The tools found on the property after his passing were shockingly basic, a collection of simple chains, blocks, metal tripods, and handmade winches. Nothing that modern engineering recognizes as capable of the work displayed. This disconnect between the simple tools and the monumental result is the core of the mystery. Engineers and physicists who have studied the site are left baffled. How did one man, without modern machinery or even significant help, cut precise blocks from the bedrock? How did he transport them across the property? Most perplexing of all, how did he lift them into place? The revolving 9-ton gate, machined to sit on a metal shaft and old truck bearings, is a masterpiece of balance, but its creation with hand tools is a puzzle in itself. Some have theorized he used a system of counterweights and levers in exceptionally clever ways, perhaps rediscovering principles known to ancient builders but lost to time. Others speculate he might have employed acoustic levitation or some method of negating weight, ideas that drift into the realm of speculative physics. The Coral Castle stands as a modern testament to a very ancient question. It proves that the gap between conventional explanation and physical achievement is not limited to the distant past. Here in the 20th century, a solitary man with a secret left behind a stone garden that continues to whisper of forgotten knowledge, challenging us to wonder if the greatest tools our ancestors possessed were not made of metal, but of insight, deep beneath the sands of lies, a contradiction in stone. Behind the beautifully carved and brightly painted temple of Seti I, a monument to New Kingdom artistry, A hidden doorway leads down into a different world entirely. This is a subterranean hall of such raw, overwhelming power that it feels like stepping backward through. Gone are the refined hieroglyphs and elegant proportions of the temple above. Here, the architecture is cyclopean, built from colossal blocks of red granite that dwarf any human scale. The design is stark and elemental, a central platform or island, surrounded by a deep, water-filled channel, with 10 immense pillars holding up a ceiling of monolithic beams. The sheer weight of the stone is palpable, a crushing, silent presence that speaks of a different philosophy, a different era of construction altogether. The style is the first clue to its profound mystery. It bears almost no resemblance to the Temple of Seti that sits directly in front of it. Instead, if you squint, you see the ghost of Giza. The architecture, with its stark, monumental granite blocks and simple, massive forms, looks far more like the Valley Temple at the foot of the Great Pyramid than anything built by the pharaohs of the New Kingdom. It is as if two completely different civilizations, separated by vast stretches of time, chose to build on the same sacred ground. This jarring architectural disconnect has led many researchers to a compelling hypothesis that Thi is not a contemporary of Seti I, but a relic from a much older, forgotten age that the later Egyptians discovered, revered, and incorporated into their own sacred landscape. They may have built their elegant temple in homage to this ancient, powerful place they found already waiting in the earth. The evidence for this staggering age lies not just in style, but in the stones themselves. Some geologists and researchers have pointed to the patterns of weathering on the granite. They argue that certain erosion features, particularly what appear to be water marks high on the structures, suggest the hall was subjected to significant, prolonged immersion or flooding. This is where the hypothesis becomes truly revolutionary. For such water erosion to have occurred at this scale, the wood need to have been built during a period when the climate of Egypt was far wetter. A time of heavy rainfall and perhaps even seasonal inundation that reached this underground chamber. Conventional Egyptology places most major pyramid and temple building in a dry climatic phase, but this weathering hint points back thousands of years earlier, to the end of the last ice age or the early Holocene epoch, a time when the Sahara was a greener, wetter place. If true, this would not merely redate a single building, it would connect to a potential global pattern, aligning its origins with other megalithic mysteries from a time when human civilization, as we currently understand it, was in its infancy. The structure then becomes a potential keystone, a piece of evidence for a sophisticated, pan-ancient culture or a recurring cycle of knowledge lost and rediscovered. The central island, surrounded by a moat, adds a symbolic layer to the practical mystery. It is widely interpreted as representing the primordial mound of creation rising from the waters of chaos, a core concept in Egyptian mythology. This suggests that even if the builders were from a lost epoch, their symbolic language, their understanding of cosmic order, flowed directly into the beliefs of dynastic Egypt. They were not just anonymous engineers, they were myth-makers whose physical creation became the template for a civilization's origin story. The therefore stands as a profound enigma, a physical bridge between two worlds. It is a structure that feels impossibly old, its construction logic alien to the recorded history that came after it. It whispers of a time when giants, whether literal or metaphorical, moved stone with a purpose we can only dimly perceive, leaving behind not just a building, but a foundational idea that would echo for thousands of years in the culture that found it. The silent, granite halls of the speak of a forgotten epoch, but on a remote island in the vast Pacific, a civilization left behind a different kind of message. One carved in the faces of giants staring inward from the shore. Easter Island, or, is home to the iconic, those brooding stone figures that have become a global symbol of mystery. We know their stern faces, their elongated features gazing across the landscape. Yet the popular image is a fragment of the truth, and the full scope of the endeavor reveals a mystery of staggering proportion. Nearly 1,000 of these statues were carved from the soft volcanic rock of the island's quarry. They are not merely heads, but full torsos, many buried up to their shoulders, with detailed backs and carefully carved hands resting on their stomachs. The scale is almost incomprehensible. The largest of them, nicknamed L, lies unfinished in the quarry, a sleeping colossus measuring nearly 70 feet long and estimated to weigh around 270 tons. If completed and erected, it would have stood as tall as a 7-story building. But El never left its birthplace, and its silent presence frames the central, practical puzzle of Easter Island. How did the people move the other, still enormous statues, some weighing over 80 tons, across up to 11 miles of rugged, hilly terrain from the quarry to their final ceremonial platforms, called Ahu, along the coast? The distance alone is daunting, but the island's topography adds layers of difficulty, involving descents into valleys and climbs up slopes. The conventional toolkit, as with so many of these sites, appears heartbreakingly simple stone hand chisels made from a harder volcanic rock, used to painstakingly carve the softer tuff. The carving itself is a masterwork of patience, each brow line, each subtle curve of the lip achieved through millions of precise strikes. But the quarry is only the beginning. The transportation problem has ignited decades of debate and experimentation. One compelling theory, supported by local oral tradition, suggests they were made to walk. Experiments have shown that with 3 teams of ropes, one on each side and one behind to steady the statue, a large stone figure can be rocked and tilted forward, inching its way across the landscape in an upright position. This method seems to align with ancient stories of the statues walking to their places, powered by mana or spiritual energy. It is a visually stunning idea, and it demonstrates a possible mechanical solution. Yet, applying this theory to the actual historical operation introduces profound questions of scale and risk. Coordinating the movement of nearly 1,000 statues over generations using this delicate, physically demanding method would have required an extraordinary societal commitment. A single misstep, a snapped rope, or an uneven tilt could have shattered a statue representing years of communal labor and sacred effort. The success rate implied by the hundreds of completed standing on their platforms speaks to an almost unimaginable level of skill and organization. Furthermore, once at the coast, the final challenge awaited, raising the ton figure onto its stone platform and then placing the separate ton red stone topknot, or upon its head. This likely involved building an earthen ramp, a task requiring yet more coordinated labor. The entire enterprise, from quarry to ceremony, represents one of humanity's most intense communal projects, a total investment of a society's physical and spiritual energy into the landscape. This leads to the deeper, more poignant layer of the mystery. The common narrative tells of a society that collapsed under the weight of its own ambition, of ecological decline triggered by the resource demands of construction. While environmental changes certainly occurred, this view can overshadow the true achievement. They were not mistakes, they were the ultimate expression of a unique culture's beliefs, a way to honor ancestors and channel protective power. The fact that they achieved this with stone tools, rope made from tree bark, and human ingenuity on one of the most isolated islands on Earth is a testament not to folly, but to profound capability. The unfinished L, then, is not necessarily a symbol of failure, but perhaps a boundary marker. It shows us the outer limit of their ambition, a point where the physical challenge may have finally surpassed even their remarkable determination. They stand as a powerful reminder that ancient mysteries are not just about lost technology, but about the incredible things human communities can accomplish when united by a shared vision. Pushing the very limits of their world with nothing but their hands, their wisdom, and their will, the isolation of Easter Island's monumental project finds a startling contrast deep within the heart of Turkey. Here, the ancient builders looked not upward toward the sky, but downward into the earth, creating a refuge of breathtaking complexity. The underground city is a labyrinth carved from soft volcanic rock, a place where entire communities could vanish from the surface world. It descends for over 200 feet, a depth equivalent to an 18-story building constructed in reverse, with at least 8 explored levels winding into the darkness. This was not a simple cave or a temporary shelter. Archaeologists estimate that at its peak could have sustained a population of up to 20,000 individuals, a number that rivals many ancient surface cities. They did not just hide there, they lived there for extended periods, bringing their entire way of life beneath the ground. The scale of habitation is matched only by the sophistication of its design. This was a fully functional, self-contained city. Deep wells tapped into underground water sources, providing a secure supply even during lengthy sieges. Elaborate ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, allowed fresh air to circulate throughout the deepest chambers, a vital engineering solution to prevent suffocation and stale air. There were spaces for worship, with chapels and churches carved directly into the stone. There were stables for livestock, storage rooms for grain and oil, communal kitchens, and even wineries. Every necessity for long-term survival was accounted for within this man-made cavern. Perhaps the most ingenious features were the defensive mechanisms. Connecting the various levels were narrow, low-ceilinged passageways that could be easily defended by a few people against a larger force. Most dramatic of all were the massive, circular stone doors. These were not gates hung on hinges, but immense millstones, each weighing up to 1,000 pounds, that could be rolled across the corridors from the inside, completely sealing off entire sections of the city. Once in place, these doors were virtually impossible to move from the outside, providing an ultimate layer of security. The logistical and geological planning required for such an undertaking is difficult to overstate. The builders did not simply dig a hole. They had to understand the stability of the rock layers, ensuring ceilings would not collapse. They had to map out the entire three-dimensional layout in advance, coordinating the placement of air shafts, water sources, and living quarters across multiple levels to avoid collapse and ensure functionality. This implies a profound knowledge of structural engineering and geology, a master plan executed with remarkable precision. The traditional dating places its initial construction around the 8th century before the Common Era, with later expansions by early Christian communities. Yet the sheer maturity of the design from its earliest phases prompts deeper questions. Could the concept itself be older, refined over centuries by cultures facing repeated periods of hardship? Creating such a vast underground network was not the act of a people planning for a rainy season. It was the preparation of a society that knew existential threats could arrive at any moment. The city stands as a monument not to kings or gods, but to communal resilience, a hidden ark built to preserve a way of life against whatever storms raged on the surface above. It represents a different kind of architectural genius, one focused not on reaching for the heavens, but on securing a future deep within the enduring earth. While some ancient builders carved cities from the earth, others pursued a different kind of perfection, one of pure, silent geometry. In the lush river deltas of Costa, hidden for centuries beneath dense jungle, lies a collection of artifacts that seem to belong more to a mathematician's dream than an archaeological site. These are the stone spheres of the, and they present a mystery not of immense scale, but of impossible form. Scattered across the landscape, sometimes alone, sometimes in deliberate groupings, are hundreds of these spheres. They range in size from small enough to hold in your hand to colossal orbs over 2 meters in diameter, the largest of them weighing as much as 16 tons, comparable to a full-grown African elephant. The material itself is a clue to the difficulty of the task, carved from hard volcanic gabbro, limestone, and sandstone. But it is their shape that stops you in your tracks. They are not roughly round stones. They are near-perfect spheres, their surfaces smooth to an almost unnatural polish, their curvature so consistent that modern measurements reveal a precision that defies the presumed tools of the era. The culture that created them, a pre-Columbian society that flourished over 1,000 years ago, is believed to have worked without metal tools, using only stone hammers and abrasives. This fact transforms the spheres from curious artifacts into profound puzzles. Shaping a hard rock into a perfect sphere with hand tools is an exercise in patience and spatial reasoning of the highest order. Think of the process not as carving a statue, but as reducing a block of stone equally from every possible angle, maintaining symmetry in 3 dimensions without a single point of reference to guide you. One wrong strike, one area ground down too much, and the perfect roundness is lost. The builders would have had to constantly measure and check their progress, likely using string or other simple guides. Their minds holding a perfect geometric ideal, they then somehow transferred onto unyielding stone. The how is mesmerizing, but the why is even more elusive. What purpose did these heavy, beautiful objects serve? Were they astronomical markers, aligned to celestial events in ways we have not yet decoded? Could they have been symbols of power and status, with size denoting the importance of a family or chieftain? Some of the most intriguing arrangements found suggest a deeper, more symbolic function. Spheres have been discovered placed in alignments, forming straight lines, triangles, or parabolas across the landscape. This has led researchers to propose they might have been part of a vast cosmological map, a physical representation of constellations, social hierarchies, or sacred stories told in stone across the territory. Their placement was clearly intentional, a language we have lost the ability to read. The mystery was compounded in the 20th century, when many spheres were moved from their original sites by agricultural work, forever scrambling their ancient configurations. This loss of context is a profound reminder that an ancient artifact is not just an object, it is a piece of a larger pattern. Without knowing where they stood in relation to each other or to the horizon, a crucial part of their message is silenced. The spheres now sit in town squares, government buildings, and museum gardens, beautiful but disconnected, like individual words pulled from a poem. They challenge our perception of technological limits in a quiet but insistent way. We can understand how a society might build a wall or raise a statue, efforts of collective labor with a clear visual goal. But the single-minded pursuit of geometric perfection, of creating dozens, perhaps hundreds, of objects whose primary quality is an abstract mathematical ideal, speaks to a different kind of mind. It reveals a culture that valued harmony, balance, and a precise understanding of form for its own sake, investing immense effort into making the intangible tangible. In their silent, flawless roundness, the spheres ask us not just how they were made, but what vision of the world was so important that it needed to be expressed in perfect stone. Scattered like frozen stars across the earth, this pursuit of geometric perfection finds a haunting echo deep beneath the sunlit soil of Malta. Here, the ancient architects did not shape stone into spheres, but hollowed it out to create a sacred silence. The Hypogeum is a world turned inside out, a three-story temple complex carved entirely underground from solid Globigerina limestone over 5,000 years ago. To enter is to descend into a realm of profound intentionality, where every wall, chamber, and ceiling was painstakingly excavated in total darkness, using only tools of stone, bone, and antler. This was not a natural cave adapted for use. It was a meticulously planned subterranean mirror of the massive megalithic temples that stood above ground on the Maltese islands. The builders replicated architectural features with astonishing fidelity, carving pillars, altars, doorways, and even corbelled ceilings that mimicked the stone and timber roofs of their surface world counterparts. They did not simply dig a hole for shelter. They recreated their entire sacred architecture in negative space, inverting their world to craft a monument meant solely for the realm below. The sheer volume of stone removed, all by hand with the simplest of tools, represents a generational act of devotion that is almost incomprehensible in its patience. But the Hypogeum holds a deeper, more resonant mystery. This labyrinth of chambers is not silent, it is alive with sound. Certain rooms possess extraordinary acoustic properties. A low voice spoken in one particular oval chamber, known as the oracle room, resonates and amplifies, creating a vibration that seems to fill the entire space, felt in the bones as much as heard. This is not a random acoustic accident. The shape of the room, the curvature of the walls, and the specific frequency of resonance were almost certainly engineered. Researchers have found that the chamber resonates at a frequency close to 110 Hz, a sound frequency that studies suggest can alter human brain activity, potentially inducing states of heightened focus or altered awareness. This suggests the builders possessed a sophisticated, empirical understanding of sound physics, a knowledge woven directly into their ritual practice. The darkness, the carved symbolism, and this manipulated soundscape would have combined to create an overwhelming sensory experience for initiates, separating them completely from the world above and guiding them into a different state of consciousness. The purpose of this place, therefore, stretches far beyond architecture. It was a machine for transformation, a carefully crafted environment designed to facilitate communication with other realms, perhaps with ancestors or deities. The immense effort to create such a controlled sensory environment in perpetual darkness points to a civilization for whom the spiritual world was as real and as demanding as the physical one. Their greatest engineering feat was not the movement of megaliths under the sun, but the sculpting of darkness and sound beneath the earth, creating a portal to the unseen that still whispers its secrets to those who listen. The resonant chambers of the Hypogeum demonstrate a mastery of environment, but across the African continent, another civilization mastered the art of the wall. Rising from the savanna of modern-day Zimbabwe are the ruins of a city that gives the nation its name, a complex of stone so vast it remains the largest ancient structure south of the Sahara. Great Zimbabwe is a symphony in granite, built entirely without mortar, its dry stone walls curving and climbing to form enclosures, passages, and towering fortifications. These are not rough piles of rock. The builders carefully selected granite blocks, shaping them to fit together with such precision that the walls, some reaching over 36 feet high, have endured for more than 6 centuries through wind, rain. And the passage of time. The scale is staggering, with the outer wall of the great enclosure alone stretching nearly 800 feet in length and containing an estimated 1 million individual stones. Each stone was a conscious choice, placed by hands that understood balance, weight, and the silent language of geometry. This was not a haphazard settlement. It was a deliberate and majestic declaration in stone, the heart of a kingdom that thrived between the 11th and 15th centuries. Controlling trade routes that stretched to the coasts of the Indian Ocean. At the center of the great enclosure stands its most iconic and enigmatic feature, a solid conical tower. It rises over 30 feet tall, built with the same flawless dry stone technique, yet it is completely solid from its base to its rounded peak. It contains no chambers, no stairways, no hidden compartments. Its purpose is a riddle that has echoed through the centuries. Was it a symbolic grain silo, representing the kingdom's wealth and fertility? Could it have been an astronomical marker, its shadow or alignment marking significant dates? Perhaps it served a more ritualistic function, a focal point for ceremonies whose meanings are now lost. The very fact that such a monumental effort was invested in a functional, symbolic structure tells us that the builders of Great Zimbabwe were thinking far beyond mere utility. They were encoding their beliefs, their cosmology, and their identity into the very landscape. The logistical achievement speaks to a society of profound organization and capability. To build on this scale required more than skilled masons. It required a centralized authority capable of planning, feeding, and coordinating a large workforce over generations. It required to extract the granite, teams to transport the blocks, and master architects to oversee the rising curves of the walls, ensuring their stability without a drop of binding mortar. The precision of the stonework, with its elegant chevron and herringbone patterns in some sections, reveals a tradition of craftsmanship passed down through lineages of builders. This was a sophisticated urban center, home to perhaps 20,000 people at its peak, a hub of commerce, culture, and political power that flourished long before European contact. The enduring mystery of Great Zimbabwe is not one of alien intervention or lost super tools, but of a magnificent African civilization whose full story was for too long overlooked or dismissed by external narratives. The ruins stand as a powerful, silent corrective, a testament to indigenous innovation and complex statecraft in southern Africa. They challenge us to expand our map of where and when great architectural traditions emerged, reminding us that human genius built masterpieces on every continent, each with its own unique voice carved in stone. While the walls of Great Zimbabwe curve gracefully under the open sky, another ancient wonder chose to hide its grandeur entirely from the sun. In the quiet Chinese province of Zhejiang, local farmers draining a pond in the 1990s uncovered an entrance to a world that should not exist. This was the first glimpse of the caves, a staggering underground complex that immediately redefined the scale of ancient ambition. Carved by hand into a thick stratum of solid sandstone, this is not a single cavern, but a network of at least 24 separate, massive grottos. Together, they sprawl across an area of over 30,000 square meters, a space large enough to contain several modern football fields, all excavated from the living earth. To step inside is to be swallowed by a sense of awe that is almost physical. The ceilings soar overhead, supported by enormous, evenly spaced pillars that the builders left standing as they carved away everything around them. These pillars are not crude supports. They are integral parts of a grand architectural design, holding up vast expanses of stone roof with a clear understanding of load and stability. But it is the walls that truly mesmerize. Every single surface, from floor to ceiling, is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks. These are not random tool strikes. They are a consistent, deliberate texture, applied with a rhythmic precision that runs in uninterrupted bands across thousands of square meters of rock. The marks are a signature, the unmistakable fingerprint of a vast, coordinated human effort, yet they offer no clue as to the identity of the hands that made them. The sheer volume of material removed is the first great enigma. Archaeologists estimate that nearly 1 million cubic meters of sandstone were from this site. To visualize that, picture a solid cube of stone taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Every single bit of that rock was painstakingly chiseled out, hauled to the surface, and somehow disposed of, leaving behind a breathtaking negative space. And here, the mystery deepens into utter silence. For a project of this unimaginable scale, there is a complete absence of historical record. No local legend, no dynastic chronicle, not a single scroll or stele mentions the construction of these caves. It is as if 24 cathedrals were built underground, and everyone agreed to forget they ever existed. This historical silence is as confounding as the caves themselves. Who had the authority to command such a project? What purpose could justify the removal of a small mountain of stone? The precision of the work argues against it being a mine. The symmetrical design and decorative chiseling suggest a ceremonial or communal space of immense importance. Yet no artifacts, no inscriptions, no evidence of sustained habitation has been found to give us a hint. The builders left nothing behind but the empty, magnificent space itself and the echoing rhythm of their tools on the walls. The engineering logic is another layer of the puzzle. The caves are not random tunnels. They are designed spaces with consistent, sharp angles between walls and ceilings, and the pillars are placed with clear structural intent. Maintaining such precision over such a vast area, working in darkness illuminated only by flickering lamps, required not just thousands of laborers, but master surveyors and engineers who could visualize the entire complex in 3 dimensions before a single chisel struck. The parallel markings themselves may be more than decoration. They could represent a sophisticated quarrying technique, a methodical process for removing stone in efficient, manageable strips. But why invest such effort in creating beautiful, uniform walls in a place meant to be hidden from the world? The caves stand as a monument to a collective act of will that has vanished from human memory. They represent a national project without a nation, a sacred space without a god, a masterpiece without an artist. In their profound and elegant silence, they ask us the most haunting question of all: how can something so vast, so deliberate, be so completely forgotten? A chariot of stone awaits the dawn on India's eastern coast. The Sun Temple of is not simply a building, it is a cosmic metaphor carved from chlorite, laterite, and built in the 13th century. The entire temple complex is designed as a monumental chariot for the sun god Surya, pulled by 7 stone horses and resting upon 24 intricately carved wheels, each over 10 feet in diameter. Every element is a masterpiece of symbolism and technical prowess. The wheels are not merely decorative, they function as precise sundials, their spokes and carved details casting shadows that tell the time of day with remarkable accuracy. The walls are a dense tapestry of sculpture, depicting deities, musicians, dancers, and scenes from daily life, with a fluidity and detail that makes the stone seem to breathe. This is architecture as narrative, a story of divine passage told on a scale meant to humble the human viewer. Yet, beyond its breathtaking artistry lies a deeper layer of physical mystery. The temple is famously known as the Black Pagoda, a name given by European sailors who used its dark, towering silhouette as a navigational landmark along the coast. This darkness was not just a trick of the light, it is part of the legend. For centuries, stories have persisted that the builders placed a massive lodestone, a powerful natural magnet, at the pinnacle of the main tower. This magnet, the legend claims, served a miraculous function, holding the main idol of the deity suspended in mid-air through magnetic force. While the central tower has collapsed, and the magnet, if it ever existed, is long gone, the tale points to a culture deeply engaged with the natural forces of the world, seeking to harness them within their sacred architecture. The practical achievement, however, requires no legend to inspire awe. The temple was constructed using a principle of interlocking masonry, where iron clamps and dowels were used to bind the giant stone blocks together, a technique that provided immense structural integrity without the use of modern cement. The precision of the stone carving is itself a kind of engineering, as the complex, undercut reliefs had to be planned in concert with the structural needs of the walls, ensuring the artwork did not compromise the building's strength. This fusion of boundless artistic vision with rigorous structural logic represents a zenith of medieval Indian engineering. The temple stands, even in its partially ruined state, as a testament to a society that viewed no separation between science, art, and the divine, weaving them all into a single, staggering stone poem dedicated to the journey of the sun across the heavens. 5,500 years ago, on the small Mediterranean island of Gozo, a community looked at the largest limestone boulders they could find and envisioned a doorway for the divine. The temples rise from the landscape as a statement in colossal stone, their very name derived from the Maltese word for giant. This is not a single building, but two adjacent temples enclosed within a massive common wall, each designed in a distinctive cloverleaf shape of semicircular chambers, or apses, leading off a central corridor. The scale of the individual blocks is the first shock to the system. The outer walls are built from truly gigantic slabs, some towering over 5 meters high and weighing well in excess of 50 tons. To stand before them is to feel a visceral disconnect, a jarring sense that the timeline we hold in our minds is somehow wrong. These temples were already ancient ruins when the builders of the Great Pyramid at Giza were born. They predate Stonehenge by over 1,000 years. Their foundation stones were laid at the dawn of the Neolithic Age, a period we often picture in terms of simple farming villages and rudimentary tools, forces that picture to shatter. The architectural sophistication here is not a slow, stumbling evolution. It appears almost fully formed. The builders employed a technique known as corbelling to create roofs and domes. This involves stacking courses of stone, each one projecting slightly inward over the one below, gradually narrowing the space until it could be capped. It is a structurally sound method that requires careful planning and an understanding of load and balance. A technique that would later be used in the great tombs of Mycenae and in the underground chambers of the Hypogeum on the main island. Inside the temples, the mystery deepens beyond mere construction. The walls are punctuated by carefully carved holes, known as oracle holes. These narrow apertures connect the inner sacred spaces to external chambers or niches. Their purpose seems clear. They allowed for ritual communication. A voice speaking into one side of the wall could be heard clearly on the other, creating a disembodied, divine sound for participants within. This is not crude architecture. It is acoustic design, a deliberate manipulation of space and sound to facilitate a spiritual experience. So we return, as always, to the practical enigma. How did a society with no metal tools, No wheels and no draft animals achieve this. The limestone was locally, but moving a 50-ton block even a short distance is a monumental physics problem. The traditional explanation involves a small army of people using ropes, log rollers, and earthen ramps. It is a model of immense communal effort. Yet the coordination required speaks to something profound about this society. This was not a short-term project. The temples show signs of modification and use over many centuries. This indicates a stable, highly organized culture with a continuous tradition, a society capable of planning and executing projects that would outlive generations of its builders. They were not just surviving, they were investing their greatest collective effort into creating permanent portals to another realm. The sheer weight of the stones does more than hold up a roof. It weighs down our assumptions about prehistoric life, suggesting that the human impulse to build the impossible and the social structures to make it happen emerged much earlier and with more clarity of purpose than we once believed. The concept of carving a mountain from the top down sounds like a legend, yet in the rock-cut temples it is a breathtaking reality. The temple stands not as a structure assembled stone by stone, but as a monument revealed, a cathedral meticulously liberated from a single, massive volcanic cliff. Imagine the vision required not to build upward, but to envision a finished temple hidden within a solid rock mountain, and then to remove everything that was not part of that vision. This is subtractive architecture on a scale that defies belief. The architects and sculptors began their work at the apex of the rock, carving downward, level by level, for over a century. The volume of material they removed is staggering, an estimated 200,000 tons of solid basalt. To put that in perspective, they excavated the equivalent of nearly 5 Great Pyramids of Giza worth of rock, not to build something, but to uncover what they believed was already there. Every element you see, from the soaring story towers to the intricate pillars, the detailed animal sculptures to the elegant bridges connecting galleries, was once part of that monolithic mountain. They are all connected, all one single piece of stone. The precision this demanded is almost paralyzing to consider. One mistake, one miscalculation in the depth of a cut, one pillar carved too thin, and the entire project could have been ruined beyond repair. There was no adding material back, no fixing a major error. This required a master plan of incredible foresight, likely involving detailed models or drawings that guided thousands of workers across generations. The process was one of immense patience and coordination, with teams of sculptors, engineers, and laborers working in a carefully orchestrated sequence. Knowing that the work of the person above them had to be perfect before they could begin their own task below. The result is a freestanding temple complex that replicates the sacred mount, the Himalayan abode of the god Shiva. It is a spiritual landscape made physical, a divine mountain conjured from an earthly one through an act of supreme devotion and unimaginable effort. The temple represents a different kind of logic, one where creation is an act of revelation rather than construction. It asks us to reconsider the limits of human planning and perseverance, presenting an achievement where the vision was so clear and the will so unwavering that a mountain was patiently persuaded to become a god's home. The patient revelation of a mountain temple gives way to a landscape where the stones themselves seem to march in silent regiments. Along the windswept coast of Brittany in France, the Karnak alignments transform the earth into a geometry of pure mystery. Here, over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones are arranged in long, precise parallel rows that stretch for nearly 2.5 miles across the countryside. This is not a single monument, but a vast, sprawling composition in granite. A megalithic project of such immense scale, it feels like the work of a civilization, attempting to write a message directly upon the land. To walk among these rows is to feel a profound sense of order imposed upon the natural world. The stones are not placed randomly, they follow clear alignments, with some rows containing hundreds of individual menhirs, some standing over 4 meters tall and weighing many tons. The sheer number of stones is the first overwhelming fact, representing a mobilization of labor and resources that must have defined this society for generations. Yet the greater enigma lies not in the how, but in the why. What vision compelled a people to erect such a vast, silent army of stone? One of the most compelling theories points to the heavens. Researchers have noted that certain key alignments at Karnak correspond to significant solar and lunar events, such as the rising sun at the solstices. The precision of the rows may have functioned as a giant calendar or observatory, allowing a Neolithic society to track the passing seasons, predict celestial cycles, and anchor their ritual life to the motions of the cosmos. This suggests a deep, empirical understanding of astronomy, encoded not in writing, but in the permanent placement of granite sentinels. Another, more speculative idea considers the unique geology of the region. Some researchers have proposed that the stones could act as a kind of seismic detector. The theory suggests that the carefully balanced menhirs might vibrate or produce audible sounds in response to subtle tremors in the earth, providing an early warning system for earthquakes originating far out in the Atlantic. Whether this was intentional or a fortunate side effect of their placement remains unknown, but it speaks to a potential harmony between the builders and the invisible forces of their environment. Then there is the possibility of sacred geography. The alignments do not exist in isolation. They are part of a ritual landscape that includes burial mounds and enclosed dolmens. The stones may have marked processional routes, defined territories of the living and the dead, or served as a physical interface with ancestral or spiritual realms. Their arrangement could map a cosmology, making the beliefs of the people as tangible and enduring as the land itself. The logistics behind this silent city of stone are a puzzle of their own. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of ton granite blocks required not just muscle, but sophisticated social organization. This was a coordinated society, with a shared purpose powerful enough to sustain a project that likely spanned centuries. They possessed the engineering knowledge to dig pits, haul stones using ropes and ramps, and set them upright with stability, all without metal tools or the wheel. Yet they left behind no written records, no carvings on the stones to explain their mission. The Karnak alignments stand as a pure expression of intent, a monumental question mark carved into the earth. They represent a dialogue between humanity and the landscape on a scale we can measure but cannot fully hear, their original meaning lost in the silence between the stones. The silent regiments of Karnak speak of a society writing its purpose upon the land, but at Baalbek, we find a civilization building literally upon the purpose of another. The Temple of Jupiter here is a masterpiece of Roman engineering, a forest of 54 towering Corinthian columns that once supported one of the largest temples ever built by the empire. Yet to stand in its grand courtyard is to witness a profound architectural conversation across time. The Romans, in all their imperial confidence, did not start from the ground. They built upon a foundation that already humbled them, the 1,000-ton blocks of the older platform. And in doing so, they created a new layer of the mystery right before our eyes. Embedded within the walls of this Roman courtyard are the largest carved stone blocks ever discovered in human history. These are not part of the older below, but separate monoliths, each weighing approximately 800 tons. They are fitted into the walls with the same seamless precision, a signature technique that now appears in both the hidden foundation and the visible Roman walls above. This creates a staggering continuity, a through line of impossible capability that seems to connect two distinct eras. The Romans were master assimilators, adopting and adapting the gods, art, and technologies of the cultures they conquered. At Baalbek, we see this principle applied to architecture on a monumental scale. They found a site of undeniable power, anchored by stones of unimaginable weight, and chose to build their own tribute to the gods upon it. In raising their own 800-ton blocks and fitting them perfectly alongside, or perhaps in emulation of, the older ones, they were engaging in a dialogue with the past. It was an act of reverence and also of rivalry, an attempt to match a scale of ambition set by the nameless giants who came before. The temple itself, even in its ruined state, is a testament to this layered ambition. The columns, each composed of 3 massive drums and standing over 22 meters tall, were hauled from a quarry several miles away. The intricate carvings on their capitals, the delicate friezes depicting gods and myths, showcase a culture at the peak of its artistic and organizational power. Yet all this refined classical beauty rests upon, and is framed by, that cyclopean masonry. The site becomes a palimpsest, a single page written and rewritten by different hands separated by centuries, if not. One culture moved mountains of stone with a method we cannot fathom, and another, witnessing that legacy, strove to meet it with the full might of their empire. This layering makes Baalbek uniquely instructive. It is not one mystery, but 2 intertwined. It shows us that the drive to build on a gigantic, seemingly impossible scale is not an anomaly, but a persistent thread in human history. The Romans saw the older work not as a ruin to be cleared, but as a challenge to be answered, a benchmark of sacred power. Their temple, therefore, is more than a place of worship. It is a physical argument about legacy, a statement that they too could commune with the divine through the language of colossal stone. In the shadow of these stacked ambitions, we are left to wonder, did the Roman builders know something we have lost? Did they inherit not just the platform, but fragments of the knowledge required to move such stones, allowing them to add their own chapters to this story of granite? Or were they, like us, simply standing in awe of an earlier achievement, using every tool and slave at their command to reach for a standard set in the deep, unrecorded past? Baalbek, in its magnificent, crumbling unity, suggests that the greatest mysteries are not always about a single moment of loss, but about a chain of inspiration stretching further back than our histories dare to look. The ambition to reshape a mountain pales before the audacity to use the entire earth as a canvas. In the arid plains of southern Peru, the culture chose not to build upward, but to draw on a scale visible only to the sky. Etched into the dark desert pavement are hundreds of giant lines and figures so vast they transform the landscape itself into a monumental piece of architecture. These are not ruins of walls or temples, but ruins of intention, a cryptic message drawn across nearly 200 square miles of the Pampa. The images are breathtaking in their variety and clarity, a menagerie of stone that includes a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with delicate, articulated legs, a monkey with a spiraling tail, and a colossal humanoid figure often called the astronaut. These are not rough sketches. The lines that form them are crisp and continuous, some running perfectly straight for miles over hills and valleys without deviation, while the curves of the animal figures maintain flawless, flowing proportions. This precision across such immense distances is the heart of the mystery. The artists who created these works over 2,000 years ago never saw their full creation. From ground level, you see only a shallow trench, a groove where the dark, sun-baked surface stones have been removed to reveal the lighter colored earth beneath. The complete, magnificent image is invisible, a form that only coheres from a vantage point hundreds of feet in the air. So how did they achieve such perfection without the ability to check their progress from above? The practical answer points to a mastery of simple, yet profoundly effective, surveying techniques. Researchers suggest they could have used a system of stakes and ropes. By establishing a central axis line and working from a scaled-down model laid out on a smaller grid, teams of workers could have transferred the design point by point to the gigantic desert grid. A straight line spanning miles could be created by lining up a series of siding posts over the intervening hills, a technique of basic geometry applied with meticulous care. The maintenance of perfect curves and complex shapes, however, adds a layer of sophisticated mathematical understanding. It implies the possessed not just manual skill, but an advanced conceptual grasp of proportionality and scale, an ability to enlarge a design with geometric fidelity. This was not doodling in the sand. It was precise engineering on a territorial scale. The purpose behind this immense effort is a puzzle that has sparked endless speculation. One of the most enduring theories connects the lines to water, the most precious resource in the desert. Some of the longest lines point toward sources of underground water or converge on distant foothills where seasonal streams emerge. The animal figures, many associated with water or fertility in Andean cosmology, could have been prayers or offerings to deities believed to control the rains and the flow of life, giving water through the arid land. Another compelling idea views the lines as a vast astronomical calendar. Certain alignments have been found to correspond with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and significant stars during solstices and equinoxes. The desert plain, clear and open to the horizon, would have served as an ideal observatory, with the lines acting as permanent markers for celestial events that dictated the agricultural and ritual cycles. There is also the powerful concept of sacred pathways. The lines, especially the long, straight ones, may have been processional routes used during ceremonies. Participants walking these paths, perhaps in a ritual trance state, would have been tracing a giant, invisible symbol on the earth, physically enacting a connection between the human community and the spiritual realm of the mountains, the sky, and the ancestors. The very act of creating and maintaining these lines, of walking them in ritual, could have been the core purpose, a way of weaving the community into the fabric of the cosmos. The lines resist a single, simple explanation because they likely served multiple, intertwined functions. They were a map of the heavens, a prayer for water, a ritual arena, and a statement of identity all at once. They represent a civilization that did not see a separation between art, science, and spirituality, but fused them into a single practice of interacting with their world. To create them required a society with the organizational capacity to plan and execute projects over generations, and the shared vision to invest in works whose full beauty they themselves could never physically behold. They trusted in a perspective beyond their own, leaving a message for the gods or perhaps for the future. Written in lines so large, they required the passage of time and the invention of flight for us to finally begin reading them. The desert's vast drawings give way to a canyon where the stone itself was persuaded to become a palace. In the hidden city of Petra, the treasury stands not as a building, but as a magnificent scar, carved with impossible delicacy into the living heart of a rose-red sandstone cliff. To approach it through the narrow, winding, is to experience a theatrical reveal crafted by nature and perfected by human hands, as the canyon finally opens to frame this iconic monument glowing in the desert sun. The precision here is of a different order than the stacking of megaliths. This is the art of subtraction performed with a sculptor's grace on a monumental scale. Every column, pediment, and statue of the 2-story high was carved from the top down, beginning at the cliff's summit and working downward. A method that required the sculptors to envision the finished work in 3 dimensions before a single chip of stone fell. They had to calculate depth, proportion, and structural load in reverse, ensuring that as they removed tons of rock, the remaining stone would hold the form of intricate Corinthian capitals, mythological figures, and ornate urns. The softness of the sandstone allowed for such detail, but this very quality made the engineering feat more perilous. Sandstone is fragile and can fracture unpredictably. The builders had to understand the grain and weaknesses of the rock intimately, carving in harmony with its natural structure to prevent catastrophic collapse. This was architecture as a dialogue with the mountain, a negotiation between artistic ambition and geological reality. The contrast between the exterior and interior deepens the mystery. Behind the breathtaking, Hellenistic-inspired, lies a single, stark, square chamber, a hollow room of surprising simplicity. This jarring difference has fueled debate for centuries. If this was a royal tomb, as many believe, why invest such unparalleled artistic effort on a public face for a private, austere space? A civilization of master traders who controlled the incense routes were renowned for their wealth and cosmopolitan tastes. The treasuries, with its blend of Egyptian, Greek, and Assyrian architectural elements, is a stone declaration of that connected, worldly identity. It may have served less as a sealed tomb and more as a ceremonial chamber, a powerful symbol of authority and piety designed to awe caravan travelers arriving from the desert. Its primary purpose could have been to impress the living, serving as a testament to the king's power and the kingdom's connection to the gods and the wider civilized world. The practical logistics of its creation are a quiet marvel. Working at such heights without modern scaffolding presented a supreme challenge. The builders likely used a combination of rock-cut ledges, wooden platforms anchored into the cliff face, and ropes, creating a precarious workplace high above the canyon floor. The tools were simple, iron chisels and hammers, yet the results display a level of artistic refinement that rivals the finest stonework of the classical world. Each curl of an acanthus leaf, each fold of a sculpted robe, was achieved through countless careful strikes, with sand and water likely used as abrasives to achieve the final smooth polish. This work was done under the relentless desert sun, a testament to the skill and endurance of craftsmen. The treasury, therefore, represents a pinnacle of rock-cut architecture, where artistic vision and practical engineering were perfectly fused. It showcases a civilization that could translate its wealth and cosmopolitan spirit directly into the landscape, using the mountain not as a quarry for separate blocks, but as the very fabric of its grandest art. It asks us to see beyond the label of tomb, to understand it as a statement, a billboard in stone meant to communicate power, sophistication, and divine favor to all who entered the hidden city. In its silent, rosy grandeur, it proves that the most enduring mysteries are not always about how stone was moved, but about how it was persuaded to dream. The journey of a single stone can rewrite the story of an entire landscape. At Stonehenge, the iconic ring of towering sarsen stones captures our imagination, but the true heart of the mystery lies in the smaller, unassuming bluestones at its center. These dolerite and rhyolite pillars, each weighing between 2 and 4 tons, hold a secret within their crystalline structure. Modern geochemical fingerprinting has traced their origin not to the local Salisbury Plain, but to the craggy outcrops of the hills in western Wales. A distance of over 140 miles as the crow flies. This discovery transforms Stonehenge from a regional monument into a project of national, even spiritual, pilgrimage. It means the builders did not simply use the stones they found nearby. They embarked on a deliberate, arduous quest to bring specific stones from a specific, distant sacred source. The question of how they accomplished this is a logistical puzzle that has ignited fierce debate for generations. The journey would have been a monumental undertaking, crossing rivers, navigating dense forests, and traversing rugged hills long before the existence of roads or wheeled vehicles. The conventional narrative envisions a combination of human and natural power. One prominent theory suggests the stones were hauled on wooden sledges or rollers, pulled by teams of people using ropes made from plant fibers. This overland route, while direct, presents almost unimaginable difficulties, requiring the coordination of hundreds of people to inch each ton stone across miles of challenging terrain. Another compelling hypothesis involves a hybrid journey. The builders may have used a combination of land and water transport, dragging the stones to a waterway, loading them onto rafts or barges, and floating them along the Welsh coast and up rivers like the Avon, significantly reducing the friction and effort required for much of the distance. This method displays a sophisticated understanding of local geography and hydrology, suggesting the builders possessed detailed knowledge of the land and its resources. Experiments have been conducted to test these methods, with modern teams attempting to replicate the journey using only Neolithic-era technology. These efforts have proven both illuminating and humbling. They demonstrate that moving the stones was physically possible, but they also reveal the staggering scale of the endeavor. It would have required meticulous planning, a vast communal effort, and an unwavering shared purpose that sustained the project over decades, perhaps even generations. This is where the mystery transcends mere engineering. The immense effort implies a motivation far stronger than simple monument building. Why go to such extraordinary lengths for these particular stones? The answer may lie in their origin. The hills are not just a quarry, they are a landscape imbued with ancient significance, home to other ritual sites, and long considered a source of spiritual power. The bluestones themselves may have been believed to possess inherent magical or healing properties. By transporting them to Salisbury Plain, the builders were not just moving rock, they were physically transplanting a piece of a sacred geography, merging the power of one holy landscape with another to create a potent ritual center of unparalleled energy. This act transforms Stonehenge from a calendar or an observatory, though it may also be those things, into a profound symbol of connection. It represents a civilization capable of unifying distant parts of their world through a shared vision and sheer collective will, weaving separate places into a single, sacred whole through the deliberate, backbreaking placement of stone. The deliberate, sacred journey of Stonehenge's bluestones finds a staggering parallel in the open ocean, where an entire city was conjured from the sea itself. On the remote island of Micronesia, the ruins of Nan rise from a shallow coral reef like a ghostly maze of stone. This is not a city built on solid land, but a network of nearly 100 artificial islets, painstakingly constructed atop the living reef, all connected by a silent grid of canals. To call it the Venice of the Pacific is to undersell its profound isolation and the sheer improbability of its existence. Here, the builders did not adapt to the landscape. They invented a new one, creating a ceremonial and political capital on a foundation that nature never intended to support. The material they chose is the first clue to the scale of their ambition: colossal logs of prismatic basalt. These are not rough boulders, but geometric columns, often 5 or 8-sided, that look like enormous crystals hewn from the earth. Each one weighs many tons, with the largest reaching an estimated 50 tons. The quarry for this stone lies on the opposite side of a dense, mountainous jungle away from the coast. This means every single one of these ton-stone logs was first extracted from the volcanic bedrock, then transported across miles of rugged, forested terrain, and finally moved across open water to the construction site on the reef. The journey itself is a trilogy of impossible tasks. How do you quarry and shape these geometric columns? The natural fracturing of basalt can create these prismatic shapes, but selecting, detaching, and finishing them with consistency implies a sophisticated understanding of the stone's properties. Then comes the overland trek. Without wheels or draft animals, the only conceivable method involves an immense human workforce using ropes, levers, and possibly a system of rollers, inching each column down to the shore. But the final leg of the journey is the most mystifying: the marine transport. How do you move a 50-ton stone column across the sea? The prevailing theory suggests the use of outrigger canoes or rafts lashed together for stability. Imagine the scene: a flotilla of wooden vessels, powered by paddles and sails, attempting to maneuver a submerged or partially floating stone of unimaginable weight through tidal currents and over the reef. The coordination and maritime skill required for this operation, repeated thousands of times, speak of a society that was master of both the land and the sea in ways we can barely reconstruct. Once at the reef, the challenge inverted. Here, in a dynamic tidal zone where water levels constantly change, the builders stacked these basalt logs. They used a technique called cross-hatching, laying columns in alternating layers, crisscrossing them like a gigantic log cabin made of stone. This method provided stability, allowing the walls to flex slightly with the movement of the water and the reef without collapsing. The precision of this stacking, creating walls that still stand stories high after centuries of typhoons and tides, is an engineering marvel in its own right. But the fundamental question remains: why build here? Why choose the most difficult, most unstable foundation imaginable? The answer may be one of power and symbolism. By creating a city on a reef accessible only by boat, the ruling elite of Nan literally set themselves apart. They occupied a space that was neither fully land nor fully sea, a liminal realm that reinforced their sacred, untouchable status. The canals functioned as streets, controlling access and movement, turning the entire complex into a ceremonial fortress. The effort required to build it would have commanded the labor of the entire island's population for generations, a tangible demonstration of the ruling clan's authority to mobilize society itself. Nan, therefore, is more than a collection of mysterious ruins. It is a physical manifestation of social and spiritual power. It represents a civilization that looked at the barrier between ocean and land and saw not an obstacle, but an opportunity to build a world entirely of their own making. Using the heaviest materials from the earth to defy the sea, in its waterlogged silence, it asks us what a society is truly capable of when its vision is as vast and unyielding as the stones it moves. While Nan's stones were stacked against the sea, on the sun-drenched island of Malta, another culture was carefully drilling holes for the sun itself. The temples of Hagar and stand on a rocky plateau overlooking the Mediterranean, their honey-colored limestone walls curved into shapes that feel both ancient and strangely organic. Built over 5,000 years ago, they are among the oldest freestanding structures in the entire world, predating even the pyramids of Egypt. Their construction from massive, multi-ton slabs is impressive enough, but their true mystery is not locked in their weight, but etched in light and shadow. These are not just places of gathering, they are stone calendars, engineered with a precision that captures the cosmos. The most compelling evidence is written in sunlight on specific days of the year. The lower temple is designed with an extraordinary focus on the equinoxes and solstices. On the morning of the spring and autumn equinox, a slender beam of sunlight pierces the main doorway and travels across the stone floor, eventually illuminating a specific carved marker on a back slab. The alignment is so exact that the light forms a perfect rectangle of illumination around this stone. During the summer solstice, the sunrise aligns with a different, specially shaped aperture in the outer wall, casting a distinct pattern of light onto the temple interior. At the winter solstice, the same phenomenon occurs through another aperture, marking the year's shortest day. This is not a happy accident of architecture. The doorways and openings are not mere entrances, they are precisely calibrated sighting devices. The builders had to possess a deep, empirical knowledge of the solar cycle, observing the sun's shifting path across the horizon for generations to understand its extreme northern and southern rising points. Translating this celestial knowledge into permanent limestone was the ultimate act of foresight. It required the builders to be both astronomers and master architects. First, they had to establish a fixed observation point, likely using wooden posts or standing stones to mark the sun's critical positions on the horizon over many years. Then, they had to design a temple where the walls and doorways would frame those exact celestial events for centuries to come. This means the entire floor plan, the thickness of the walls, and the height and width of the apertures were all calculated in advance. A misalignment of just a few inches would mean the sunbeam would miss its target entirely, rendering the sacred mechanism useless. The fact that it still functions today, 5 later, is a testament to the astonishing accuracy of their work. This achievement redefines our image of these early builders. They were not simply laborers piling stone upon stone, they were keen scientists and timekeepers. Their temple was their observatory, their library, and their ritual center all fused into one. By anchoring their sacred space to the immutable rhythm of the sun, they were doing more than marking time. They were weaving their community's life into the very fabric of the universe, ensuring that every spring planting and every harvest would be guided by a divine light, shining through a hole in a wall they had built to last forever. High in the Andes, the stones cling to a mountainside with a tenacity that mirrors the empire that placed them there. This fortress, guarding the entrance to the sacred valley, is an Inca masterpiece of both military strategy and architectural audacity. Its most iconic feature is the Temple of the Sun, an unfinished platform fronted by a wall of 6 colossal monoliths. Each stone is a slab of pink porphyry, a volcanic rock of immense hardness, standing over 12 feet tall and weighing many tons. They are fitted together with the signature Inca precision, joints so tight they seem to have grown from a single, impossible crystal. Yet the true weight of this achievement is not measured in tons alone, but in the staggering journey each block was forced to take. The quarry for this distinctive pink stone lies on the opposite side of the valley, high on a mountainside called, separated from the construction site by a steep gorge and the rushing waters of the river. This creates a 3-part logistical nightmare that modern engineers still struggle to comprehend. First, the multi-ton blocks had to be lowered down a near-vertical mountain face from the quarry. Then they had to be transported across the turbulent river. Finally, they had to be dragged up the steep slope to the fortress site, nearly 1,000 feet above the valley floor. The Inca solution to the first challenge is still visibly etched into the landscape. A long, smooth ramp of fitted stone, like a colossal slide, descends from the quarry. It is widely believed the builders used this ramp to guide the stones downward, perhaps controlling their descent with ropes in a delicate, terrifying ballet of gravity and human strength. One can imagine teams of workers stationed along the route, using massive fiber ropes to break the stone's momentum, preventing it from shattering itself or the ramp in a catastrophic plunge. But then comes the river. How do you move a stone heavier than an armored truck across a fast-moving current, with no bridges capable of supporting such a load? The most plausible theory suggests the Inca temporarily diverted the river itself, or built a causeway during the dry season, creating a solid path across the riverbed. This act alone represents a staggering subsidiary project, a testament to their hydrological understanding and their willingness to reshape the very geography to serve their purpose. The final ascent is perhaps the most physically demanding phase. Hauling these stones up to the fortress required an immense tractive force. The Inca likely used earthen ramps, thousands of laborers pulling with ropes made from leather and plant fibers, and a system of levers to inch each block upward over days or weeks. The precision of the final fitting atop this mountain eyrie is the ultimate marvel. Each irregular porphyry slab had to be painstakingly shaped to interlock perfectly with its neighbors, a process that would have required constant trial and error. Grinding the surfaces with sand and water until the fit was flawless. The wall remains unfinished, with many more giant stones left abandoned along the transport route and in the quarry, as if the project was halted mid-stride. This incompleteness is a gift to archaeologists, freezing a moment in the construction process and offering clues to the methods. Yet, the very scale of what was accomplished, even partially, defies easy explanation. It showcases an organizational genius that could coordinate hundreds, perhaps thousands, of workers across a complex, multi-stage operation spanning difficult terrain. It speaks of a society that viewed such monumental effort not as a burden, but as a sacred duty, a way to bind the community to the land and the gods through shared, Herculean labor. The stones do not whisper of lost technology, but of a found and perfected human will, a mastery of logistics so complete that it could make mountains walk, one impossible step at a time. Does not simply add another site to our list, it shatters the list itself. On a barren hilltop in southeastern Turkey, a series of circular enclosures built from limestone pillars stands as a deliberate, stunning challenge to the story we tell about human progress. The stones themselves are monumental, T-shaped monoliths, some weighing over 10 tons and standing nearly 20 feet tall. They are arranged in precise rings, like the silent ribs of some great stone beast, with two even larger pillars often positioned at the center of each circle. Their surfaces are a gallery of ancient memory, carved with a menagerie of foxes, boars, cranes, scorpions, and lions, rendered with a fluid artistry that feels shockingly sophisticated. The artistry, however, is not the primary mystery. It is the date. Carbon analysis places the construction of these enclosures firmly around 11,600 years ago. This number is not just old, it is revolutionary. Was built over 6,000 years before Stonehenge, over 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its oldest stones were erected at the very end of the last ice age, in a world we have always believed was populated solely by small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. This timeline turns the traditional narrative of civilization inside out. The standard model tells us that first came agriculture. The stability of farming, the theory goes, created food surpluses. Those surpluses allowed for specialization, freeing some people from food production to become artisans, priests, and rulers. This specialization then led to complex social structures, and only then, as a product of this settled, organized society, could monumental architecture like temples be built. Stands in the landscape like a colossal question mark written in stone, because it presents the exact opposite sequence. Here we have the most monumental architecture of its era, built by people who, according to all the evidence, were still hunters and gatherers. They had no pottery, no metal tools, no domesticated animals for labor, and no evidence of permanent settlement or farming around the site itself. This forces a profound rethink. What if the drive to build something grand, to gather for a shared spiritual purpose, came first? What if it was the need to coordinate for these massive construction projects that actually spurred the development of more complex social organization, and perhaps even the need for more reliable food sources? Like agriculture, in this light, is not a temple built by a civilization. It might be the very workshop where civilization was assembled. The practicalities of its construction deepen the awe. The limestone pillars were from local bedrock, but moving a 10-ton, carefully shaped monolith even a few hundred meters with only stone tools, wooden levers, and human muscle is a staggering communal effort. It implies a level of planning, leadership, and labor coordination that anthropology rarely attributes to pre-agricultural peoples. The builders had to be fed, housed in temporary camps, and motivated over what was likely generations of work. The intricate carvings suggest another layer of specialization. Master artists who dedicated themselves to translating a rich symbolic world onto the stone. A world of animals that likely held deep spiritual and mythological meaning for the gatherers. Then, perhaps most mystifying of all, the entire complex was deliberately buried around 10,000 years ago, carefully filled in with tons of soil and stone debris. This was not an abandonment, it was a ritual entombment, a conscious act of preservation for a place that had served its purpose. Therefore, offers a completely different origin story. It suggests that the human impulse to create meaning, to gather around shared symbols and undertake impossible projects together, may be the foundational spark. The need to build the sacred could have been the engine that drove the invention of society as we know it, making this lonely hilltop in Turkey not just the oldest temple we have found, but potentially the very cradle of the communal dream we call civilization. These scattered stones, separated by oceans, and begin to whisper a common language. When you step back from the individual marvels of Baalbek, and view all 25 sites as a single, fragmented gallery, compelling patterns emerge from the chaos. It is as if different cultures, unaware of each other's existence, were all trying to solve the same set of architectural puzzles. The first and most visually striking pattern is the global obsession with polygonal masonry. From the jigsaw walls of Peru to the cyclopean foundations of Lebanon and the precise interlocking blocks of Japan's submerged monument, we see the same solution to the same problem. How to build a wall that can withstand time and seismic force without mortar. This was not the easiest way to build. It was the most permanent, suggesting a shared priority on creating structures meant to endure for the ages, not just for a generation. Equally widespread is the silent dialogue with the sky. The solstice alignments at the cardinal precision of the Great Pyramid, the possible astronomical markers at Karnak. and the solar chariot of all point to a universal human impulse to anchor sacred spaces to the cosmos. This was not casual observation, it was precise, empirical science encoded in stone. These alignments required generations of careful skywatching and a mathematical understanding sophisticated enough to translate celestial movements into fixed architectural plans. It reveals cultures that saw themselves as part of a larger cosmic order, and their greatest buildings were instruments to measure and commune with that order. Then there is the most physically daunting pattern, the relentless movement of the immovable. Whether it is the 1,000-ton blocks of Baalbek, the bluestones of Stonehenge hauled from Wales, the basalt logs of Nan floated across the sea, or the porphyry giants of dragged up a mountain, we see the same awe-inspiring refusal to be limited by the weight of stone. This pattern suggests that for these cultures, the difficulty was not a barrier, but perhaps part of the point. The immense communal effort itself may have been a sacred act, a ritual of unity that bound society together through shared, Herculean labor. Finally, there is the mysterious pattern of disappearance. In many cases, the techniques used to achieve these peaks of construction seem to vanish from the historical record. The knowledge that built them appears alien to later Egyptian builders. The method for moving Baalbek's megaliths was lost before the Romans arrived. The master craftsmen of Puma left no instruction manual. This recurring fade-out hints that such knowledge was not common technology, but perhaps closely guarded, specialized tradition, vulnerable to social upheaval, the passing of a master without an heir, or a deliberate choice to bury the secrets with a sacred site. These recurring threads have, understandably, sparked grand theories to explain them. One sweeping idea is the concept of a lost global civilization, or a mother culture, that disseminated this advanced architectural knowledge before fragmenting or disappearing beneath rising seas. Proponents point to the similarities in style and the hints of great antiquity at places like or as possible evidence of this common source. A related theory suggests not a single civilization, but a forgotten epoch of advanced prehistoric knowledge, a golden age where cultures understood natural laws, like the manipulation of sound or gravity, in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. Stories of levitation from various traditions and the acoustic wonders of the Hypogeum feed into this speculative space. A more grounded, yet equally profound, perspective shifts the focus from lost technology to lost human potential. This view argues that we consistently underestimate the power of sustained human cooperation, meticulous empirical observation, and generational patience. What we call a mystery may simply be the peak output of a society entirely dedicated to a singular spiritual and communal goal, using clever applications of leverage, water, rope, and ramp that we have yet to fully replicate or appreciate. The real marvel in this light is not a forgotten machine, but the forgotten scale of what a unified human community can achieve with time, purpose, and hard-won wisdom passed from elder to apprentice. Perhaps the truth resides not in choosing one theory over another, but in the tension between them. The patterns are real, the similarities too striking to dismiss as mere coincidence. They may point to a deep, shared human intuition about geometry, stability, and the stars, an intuition that different cultures discovered independently when pushed by necessity and inspired by devotion. The vanished techniques remind us that knowledge is fragile, and that history is not a straight line of progress, but a story of peaks and valleys, of brilliant light cast by civilizations that sometimes flickered out, leaving only their most enduring stones to tell us that they were here, they understood, and they built wonders we are still striving to fully comprehend. This collective portrait of ancient genius leaves us not with answers, but with a far more valuable gift, a deeper and richer set of questions. Our journey across continents and reveals a world far more complex, interconnected, and ingenious than our traditional timelines often portray. These are not merely old stones gathering dust, they are active participants in a conversation that spans ages. Each one is a testament to the boundless curiosity, the profound skill, and the deep spiritual drive of our ancestors. They built not just for their own time, but with a vision that somehow reached toward us, leaving behind puzzles they knew would endure. While we may never fully unravel every mystery, each site serves a crucial purpose. It challenges us to keep questioning, to keep exploring, and to maintain a humble respect for the vast, untold depths of human achievement. The true value of these places lies not in proving one theory wrong or another right, but in the way they stretch our imagination of what is possible. They force us to look at a simple stone hammer or a length of rope and see not limitations, but tools of immense potential in the hands of a motivated, unified community. Perhaps the greatest lesson whispered from these walls is that history is not a closed book with a fixed story. It is an open excavation, an ongoing discovery where every new scan, every geological survey, and every reinterpretation of an old text can shift the narrative. It invites each new generation to dig deeper, to look closer, and to listen more carefully to the silent stories told in geometry, alignment, and the sheer weight of ambition. These ruins remind us that our story is longer, stranger, and more wonderful than we often assume. If these ancient puzzles have captivated your curiosity, consider joining us as we continue to explore history's greatest enigmas. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these 25 ruins leaves you the most baffled, and what mystery do you hope we uncover next?